Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is in Seoul to meet tomorrow with South Korea's President Moon Jae-in. They will talk about President Trump's decision to temporarily halt joint military exercises. That move surprised Seoul, along with top Pentagon officials and some members of Congress. Many Republicans were cautiously optimistic about the meeting with Kim Jong Un, but some say key elements are missing from the agreement to ensure denuclearization.
The Trump administration responds that the National Security Council led preparations for the summit and created an aggressive dismantlement timeline. U.S. officials consulted experts on verification, nuclear fuel, and safely taking apart weapons.
CBS News military and homeland security analyst Sandy Winnefeld is a retired Navy admiral and former vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He served as commander of the North American Aerospace Defense Command, the organization tasked with preventing air attacks against North America. Admiral, good morning.
Good morning.
The president says we're going to end war games. Were the U.S. and Republic of Korea forces engaged in war games?
Well, we don't usually call them games. War games is more of a technical term that's used for experimentation, that sort of thing. These were really high-level joint exercises, combined exercises with a very important partner, obviously, on the Korean Peninsula.
Those are readiness exercises, aren't they? What purpose do they serve? Well,
they do two things that are very important. The first one, obviously, is deterrence, and they've worked very well for decades in deterring North Korea from attacking the South. As part of that, the second thing is that they allow two nations, militaries, that come from different cultures, speak different languages, to prepare for combat together in this kapshikachida, which means we go together mode, in a potential high-intensity combat environment that could happen on short notice in very short space. They're very important.
You know, it's interesting, when I was there in May, the 8th Army says ready to fight tonight. They call it the closest joint military cooperation in the world between two U.S. forces. And because of that, it means there can be less U.S. troops there because the South Koreans are helping them. Could they turn on a dime then and restart these joint military exercises?
They could, and that's what's so important about these negotiations, and that is, are we going to trade reversible for reversible and irreversible for irreversible, or are we going to try to get the better side of that? And in this case, it's a big deal to trade something like this, but it's also very reversible. You can snap your fingers and do an exercise tomorrow if Jim Mattis says so.
Admiral, speaking of Jim Mattis, in the Pentagon, are they behaving, do you think, like, as the president said, there is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea as a practical matter?
Well, this is about capability and intent. The capability is still there, and everybody knows it. Perhaps the intent on North Korea's part to use these weapons has been modulated a little bit by this particular event that's just happened. But you have, as a military person, you always take capability in mind, and that's what this negotiation is going to be all about, dismantling that capability.
One of the other chips on the table the president can use, in addition to these training exercises, is the number of U.S. troops in South Korea. Let's imagine, as the president suggested, down the line in the negotiation, those troops would be removed. How strategically would that affect the U.S. posture in the entire region? Because obviously China is a major concern for the U.S. Would that affect it, or could the U.S. have troops in other places in the region and still deal with the threats in the area?
Well, first of all, China loves this. They would love to diminish U.S. influence in the region, and part of that is the number of troops we have and where they're placed. Interestingly, Kim Jong Un didn't ask for that as a concession. He pointedly said, I'm not worried about that. But President Trump may want to bring some of these folks home. It will impact our ability to respond in the region, but those troops are really focused on the Korean Peninsula.
Right. So if, let's say, the Korean War ends and that's part of this deal, could those troops be placed elsewhere in the area?
They could be. That would depend largely on Japan or Australia or another ally in the region, allowing us to move those troops, say, in a phased approach out of the region. But it would be wise to keep that presence there as a counterbalance to some other players in the region who might be problematic.
Right. The president tweeted that we're safer today because of that summit yesterday. What's your takeaway? He's clearly feeling very good about it and how things turned out.
I'm very cautiously optimistic, Gayle. You know, when you think of all possible futures, Griffin from Men in Black 3, this alien being who can see them all, I think this was a pretty good start to a good future. The question now is what comes next, and that's, you know, this was easy compared to what comes next in terms of the very, very difficult negotiations in terms of dismantling this capability in a phased process. It's going to have to be phased. We're going to have to very carefully, again, trade reversible for reversible and not fall into the same trap we might have fallen into.
Certainly more work to be done. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sandy, always good to have you at the table.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.